We want to come too,
Caitlin shouted. Cailin held up a satchel.
We're already packed.
And you'll go right upstairs and unpack, Ian said in a tone that brooked no response, although both twins looked like they were going to argue anyway. Ian glowered at them. No, lasses. Caitlin pouted, and Cailin frowned.
But Bridget is leaving.
She will come back to visit, Gillian said gently. The twins turned to Bridget, their green eyes hopeful.
Will you?
Bridget hated making promises she might not keep. I will try. The twins rushed at her so forcefully she might have been bowled over, except for the fact they were both clutching her tightly. For a moment, her resolve wavered. She had lived in this redone medieval castle her whole life. Then she hugged the girls back and followed Ian out the door to the waiting carriage. Ian didn't speak as he strapped the trunk to the back of the coach and came around to open the door for her. Bridget was grateful for that. Sailing the stormy emotional sea of the past 5 months, she had kept her feelings tightly sheeted in. Now was not the time to allow herself a weak moment. Instead, she returned Ian's curt nod and waved briefly at Gillian and the twins standing on the steps. Ian closed the door, and she heard him give last-minute instructions to the guards that would ride alongside. Then, the carriage lurched forward. Bridget resisted the urge to look out the window one last time. What good would it do? She never cried, and right now, she felt perilously close to doing just that. She cleared her throat, lifted her chin, and folded her hands in her lap. This was Ian and Gillian's home now, a place where they could raise their bairns. Even though they had offered her a place to stay, she did not want to be the equivalent of a dowager aunt. At 8 and 20, she was no longer young, but Bridget did not want to grow old relying on Ian's charity. She needed to take hold of her ship's tiller and steer her own course. Early afternoon on the second day, the carriage finally reached Arisaig. Bridget would have preferred they just exchange horses at a coaching inn by Lochmoror and continue on, but evidently part of the instructions that Ian had given, which she hadn't heard, were orders for the driver and guards to spend the night at the inn, lest brigands or marauders attacked them after dark. She wasn't sure whether she wanted to bless Ian for taking precautions, or curse him for thinking she was some delicate hothouse flower that needed pampering. Widowhood had not turned her into a whimpering fool. At least she was here now, a new start to an independent life. Bridget looked out the carriage window as the carriage proceeded down the main street of the village. An open area on one side had a few stalls, indicating where the local market would be. Broken seashells paved the road and crunched beneath the horses' hooves as they passed a small stone church with an array of tombstones, some upright and others slanting sideways on either side of it. Past that, a wood-framed house stood, probably for the parson. A short distance away was the public house that, given its second story, probably also let rooms. A public stable and smithy were farther down the road. Behind those buildings would be the villagers' homes, nestled in the shadows of the rocky Craig Moor. As the carriage turned right at the end of the road, Bridget caught a glimpse of the sheltered shore of Loch Seal. An actual Viking longboat bobbed on a mooring not far out. Pretty as it was, did anyone actually use a longboat anymore? The water seemed so calm compared to the rough waves of Loch Shiel that crashed below her home. Former home, Bridget reminded herself. Still, the familiar scent of salty sea air was comforting. She could also see a small whitewashed building set back from the water that probably served as a marine office. The horses trotted down a narrow, hardened dirt street with a few sparse trees on one side. They passed several small cottages and a large 2-story wood-flat home behind high hedges and tangled vines. 3 houses later, the carriage rocked to a stop. This was it then. Her new life awaited her. Bridget took a deep breath as the coachman opened the door.